Hello everybody. Next up we play host to Premier League new boys Brentford. Kick-off at the Olympic on Sunday is 2 p.m, and since you have to get up early anyway, why not pop along to Marshgate Lane at say 12:30. It might just prove educational. Keep an eye on your trains if you use the C2C line. The bit between Barking and Grays will be closed, so diversions and replacement buses will be the order of the day. Look out for a revised timetable on the Upminster bid as well. As ever, check before you leave. So, Brentford then. We should call this the Dave Evans Derby, really, after the Bees supporting late journalist who covered the Irons for the New and Recorder. He was a lovely chap who really would have been looking forward to this one. It's been a while since our paths crossed competitively, though in fact it wasn't quite as long ago as I thought when we did the research. This is their first season back in the top flight for 74 years, as you're no doubt fed up with hearing. To give you some sort of context, it was a bit of a winter. The worst of the 20th century, in fact, with snow that fell in January not thawing out until mid-March, causing fuel shortages, if you can imagine such a thing. These were exacerbated by the miners' unions overestimating how much coal they were producing. The microwave was invented and, according to the Father Ted calendar, Galway was liberated from the Indians. This time around, the Bees arrived at the top table by virtue of a 2-0 defeat of Swansea in the playoff final, thus sparing us another international trip to add to the Thursday night league trips we have this season. Brentford have acquitted themselves well so far. They opened up with a 2-0 win over Arsenal. This was followed up by a pair of draws, 0-0 at home to Palace and 1-1 away at Villa. Their first and to date only defeat, so far anyway, came at home to Brighton. Trossard's 90th minute effort doing all the damage. After that they won 2-0 at Molineux despite playing the last half hour with 10 men. Last weekend saw them draw 3-3 with Liverpool, leaving them with 9 points from 6 games, which puts them in 9th place, above Arsenal and Spurs on goal difference. And of course they're 2 points and 2 places behind us. Much has been made of the fact that they do things differently over there. They have fine-tuned their modus operandi over the years since owner Matthew Benham took over ownership from the Supporters Trust. One of the more unusual things about the club is the lack of an academy structure or development squad. Instead, they run a B team, or as opposed to a B's team, as a way of developing players. This is tied in with a recruitment policy renowned for its scientific and forensic methodology. This was pioneered at the Benham-owned Danish club Midtjylland. That's Winston Reid's old mob. And it looks not just at the players themselves, but also at the league background that they come from. With the old Griffin Park not having much in the way of hospitality income, the policy of buying potential, polishing them up and making a decent profit when it comes to sale time has been a vital part of the club's income stream. The likes of Mopay, Watkins and of course Benrahma are a testament to the effectiveness of that policy. So just who did their algorithms prompt them to buy during the window? Well, Daisy, the personal assistant with the beautiful smile, from whom I no longer have to remain socially distant, has, as usual, been running her eye over the new arrivals. They utilised their links with Midtjylland, the Bees director of football Rasmus Ankersen is also the Danes chairman, to bring in once-capped Nigerian Frank Oyeka. He started out in Nigeria with FC Ebedei, a club that effectively acts as the Danes' African academy. His one cap for the Nigerians came last October, though at 23 time is probably on his side, particularly with an African Cup of soup during this winter. £13.8 million was the fee paid to Celtic for Christopher Ayer. Another 23-year-old, their computer must have that age programmed in, he arrives after 5 years at Parkhead. Celtic signed the player from Norwegian side FC Start. Now, I did ask Daisy whether there were any other teams named after jam singles, but she told me where to shove my Eton rifles, and it wasn't down at the tube station at midnight, I can tell you. Their equaliser in the 3-3 draw with the Scousers came courtesy of Johan Wissa. He's a bit longer in the tooth than their usual signings. He's 25, and he arrived from Lorient, that's the French mob, not the latent lot, for a reported fee of £8.5 million. Including League Cup outings, he's got 5 goals in 4 games, though the cup matches do include wins over the likes of Forest Green Rovers and Oldham. He's been capped by that pointless favourite, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and is another who may be running around in warmer climes this winter. The rule book got thrown out when they brought in veteran defender Janka, who, at 31, must have required their computer to have a manual override button installed. The much-travelled defender is no stranger to the Premier League, having been with Huddersfield a few years back during their dalliance with the stratosphere. He'll be hoping for a longer stay this time around. In amongst a number of youngsters, they also snuck in some goalkeeping cover in the form of Alvaro Hernandez. He has 1 full cap for Spain, and the deal with his parent club, Spanish second-tier side Huesca, gives the Bees an option to buy. Oh, and he's 23. On the injury front, Sorensen and Silva are both out with long-term injuries, whilst there is a doubt about the marvellously named Ethan Pinnock, who's struggling with a hip injury possibly sustained whilst appearing in a Dickensian novel. On we move then to the wild and wacky world of association football, and there was one in the eye for the so-called Super League clubs, as Transnistrian, some say Moldovan side Sheriff FC, beat Real Madrid 2-1 at the Bernabeu in the so-called Champions League. With Spurs having to bring out all their big guns on the Thursday night Isthmian League to beat a side with a stadium that holds less than 4,000, it may be that we're getting to the stage where we should expel the so-called super teams from all top-level competitions on the grounds that they're simply not good enough to be there. We could fine them properly this time for wasting our time and energy all this time. It's a thought. Let's move on to us. Well, the win in the Thursday Night League was ultimately a comfortable affair, although we did labour at one stage. That was a fine goal from young Declan, who started and finished a move that was most pleasing on the eye. We looked good in spells, but never made that dominance really count in a first half that could have seen us 3-0 up without really breaking sweat. An early goal after the interval would probably have seen them cave in. They were a team who had no plan and stuck to it rigidly. The non-penalty didn't look right from the start, but thanks to VAR we didn't have to fret too much about that. Benrahma's goal was a nice finish, with him rolling the ball into the wide-open gap left by the keeper at the far post. Arguably the side we put out was a weaker one than the 11 who started out in Croatia, and perhaps that side might have reaped greater reward for its efforts. However, 2-0, job done, and with Zagreb tonking Genk, it's a perfect start to Group H. A quick word, if I may, about the crowd issues. Their support had seemed harmless enough, waving their arms around in the manner of middle-aged women at a Take That concert, convinced, despite all the evidence to the contrary, that they're watching some real musicians rather than a bunch of tone-deaf, talentless chancers who couldn't carry a tune in a bucket. However, the goal turned them into a bunch of idiots who seemed surprised to discover that if they chucked objects across the divide, said objects might come back with interest. What was more of a worry was the fact that a whole bunch of them wearing colours found themselves in Block 206 of the upper tier. They sat down and were quiet for the most part. However, there was a spell in the second half when they stood up en masse and tried to get one of those synchronised clapping things that the risible Palace Ultras are no doubt working on instead of doing their geography homework as we speak. The vociferous but ultimately peaceful response they got convinced them that maybe this wasn't the greatest idea they'd had on the night, and in accordance with the instruction, they sat down and shut up. The stewards, of course, did the square root of damn all about it all. However, of more concern is the fact that they weren't the first bunch of away fans to be sold ticket in that area. It seems to be becoming a regular occurrence, and one day the visiting support won't be quite as lucky to escape with a bunch of verbals ringing in their ears. On to this weekend, and Fredericks has been joined in the infirmary by Soufal, who has a slight groin strain. He may be fit enough to make an appearance on Sunday, though. Other than that, it will be back to the league side, with Ogbonna and Zuma looking at returns to the defence. Nothing against Dawson and Diop, it's just that Brentford are likely to pose more of a challenge than Rapid Vienna. Most of the league side got short run-outs on Thursday. Cresswell playing all-nighty isn't usually a concern, and ditto Rice. Johnson is young enough not to worry should Soufal not make it, and Benrahma would probably throw the biggest strop going if anyone tried to keep him out of this one. So the prediction then. Well, they're a decent side, well coached by Thomas Frank, and from what I've seen of them, they're good at adapting their play to circumstances, so Sunday will provide a good test. They do have what appears to be a good team ethic, which will carry them so far. On the other hand, we also have as good a team spirit, if not better, which then leaves you looking at the size player for player. And on that basis, I'm going to go for a home win, possibly in a thriller. So at £2.50, I was going to tip the Eastern European Paperboys 11, who are probably Spurs' next opponents in the Thursday night Isthmian League, and that'll instead go on a home win. 3-2 to us, please, Mr. Winston. Enjoy the game.
Yes. And big knees up Mother Brown, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm regularly on the general discussion page. There's always someone who's got some information, so I love it. Yeah, it's great. Yes, it's excitement surrounded by imminent disappointment. That's what it mostly is.
Get on the forum at kumb.com. Come on, you irons.